Amelia Stone had survived bankruptcy, betrayal, and the humiliation of watching her billionaire empire almost crumble because of one man, her ex-husband. But nothing prepared her for the moment she turned at her own wedding reception and saw the woman who had destroyed her marriage standing behind a silver tray. Pregnant, pale, wearing a waitress uniform. The entire ballroom seemed to freeze. Only 2 months earlier, Amelia had been lying unconscious in the rain after a staged accident, abandoned by everyone she trusted, until a poor homeless man named Caleb carried her to safety. Now, against every whisper and judgment, she was marrying him. But her past had followed her into the room. Her ex-husband, Victor, sat among the guests with a smug smile until his eyes landed on the waitress. His face drained of color. The pregnant mistress dropped the tray, shattering glasses across the marble floor. Then she pointed at Amelia's new husband and whispered something that made Caleb stiffen. Amelia's heart pounded as Victor stood up, shouting for security. Because the secret they had buried was no longer hidden. And Amelia was about to reveal the truth that would destroy them all. For a moment, no one moved. The orchestra had been playing a soft wedding melody near the fountain of white roses, but even the violinist's bow froze in midair. Crystal glasses trembled in guests' hands. A few people turned toward Victor, then toward the pregnant waitress, then toward Amelia, as if waiting to see which side of the room would explode first. Caleb stepped closer to Amelia. Not in front of her, not behind her, beside her. That alone made Amelia breathe again. Victor's voice cut through the silence. "Security, get that woman out of here." 2 guards moved forward, but Amelia lifted one hand. "Stop!" Her voice was calm, yet it carried across the ballroom with the kind of authority people obeyed before they understood why. The guards halted. The waitress looked as though her knees might give way. One hand clutched the front of her black uniform, the other rested protectively over her stomach. Victor's chair scraped loudly against the floor. "She is trespassing," he snapped. "She is here to cause a scene." Amelia turned slowly to him. "At my wedding." Victor's jaw tightened. "Exactly, you know what she's capable of." A murmur rushed through the guests. Some of them knew pieces of the story. They knew Victor Stone had left Amelia for a younger woman named Bianca Vale. They knew the divorce had nearly ruined Amelia's reputation, because Victor had painted himself as the wronged husband, the patient man married to a cold billionaire who cared more about boardrooms than family. They knew Bianca had once appeared at charity events on Victor's arm wearing diamonds Amelia had unknowingly paid for. But they did not know why Bianca now stood in Amelia's wedding hall holding a tray like a shield, wearing shoes too tight for her swollen feet, looking more frightened of Victor than ashamed of Amelia. Caleb's hand brushed Amelia's. It was a small touch, almost invisible, but it brought back the first night he had ever touched her hand 2 months before, when she could barely open her eyes and rainwater ran down her face. She remembered the smell of wet pavement, the taste of fear, and Caleb's voice telling her, "Stay with me. I don't know who you are, but you are not dying here." That was the first time in years anyone had spoken to Amelia Stone like she was a person, not a fortune. Bianca stared at Caleb as if seeing a ghost. "You were there," she whispered again. Victor slammed his palm on the table. "Enough." Amelia looked at Bianca. "What do you mean he was there?" Bianca's lips parted, but no sound came out. Victor moved toward her. Caleb moved faster. He did not grab Victor. He simply stepped into his path, still wearing the simple charcoal suit Amelia had chosen for him because he had laughed and said he had never owned anything that expensive. The suit fit him well now, but Amelia could still see the man from the rain beneath it, the torn coat, the bruised pride, the stubborn kindness. Victor sneered, "Move, street rat." A sharp gasp came from somewhere near the cake table. Caleb's face did not change. "No." Victor leaned closer. "You forget where you came from." "No," Caleb said quietly. "That's why I know men like you." Amelia felt the guests watching her. Investors, society wives, reporters who had been invited only because Victor's presence guaranteed gossip, board members who had questioned her judgment when she announced she was marrying Caleb Reyes, a man with no family name, no bank account, and until recently, no home. They had whispered that grief had made her foolish. They had called Caleb a rescue project. They had said Amelia Stone, the billionaire who built hotels, hospitals, and towers across 3 continents, had finally lost her mind over a handsome stranger who saved her life. Victor had enjoyed every rumor. Now he looked as if the rumors had turned around and bitten him. Amelia took a step toward Bianca. The broken glass glittered between them like ice. "Bianca," Amelia said, and the woman flinched at the sound of her name. "Did you know this was my wedding?" Bianca shook her head quickly. "No, I swear I didn't. The agency called me this morning. They said one of the servers was sick, and the pay was double. I didn't know until I came through the side entrance and saw the flowers with your initials. I tried to leave, but..." Her eyes darted toward Victor. "I saw him." Victor laughed harshly. "Of course you saw me. That is why you came, to embarrass me." "No," Bianca said, her voice shaking. "You were supposed to be gone." The room shifted again. Amelia caught it immediately. "Gone where?" Bianca swallowed. "Out of the country." Victor's smile vanished. Amelia did not look away from Bianca. Why would Victor be out of the country? Bianca pressed her lips together. Fear battled with exhaustion on her face. Amelia knew that look. She had seen it in her own mirror after Victor had spent years telling her she was too suspicious, too emotional, too difficult, too proud. The cage had been made of silk and compliments at first. By the time Amelia realized it was a cage, the door had already locked. "Answer her," Caleb said. Victor turned on him. "Who do you think you are?" Caleb's eyes hardened. "Someone who carried your wife out of the road while your men drove away." The ballroom erupted. A woman near the front covered her mouth. One of Amelia's cousins whispered, "Men." The board chairman, Mr. Langford, stood so suddenly his napkin fell to the floor. Victor pointed at Caleb. "That is a lie." Caleb reached into the inside pocket of his jacket. Victor's face changed so quickly Amelia almost smiled. The arrogance cracked. Beneath it was panic. Caleb removed a small black device, no bigger than a lighter. Victor stared at it. Amelia did too. She had seen it before, but only once. Caleb had kept it wrapped in cloth beneath the loose floorboard of the tiny room he rented after Amelia insisted he stop sleeping behind the old train station. When she asked what it was, he had said, "Insurance." She had not pushed. Something in his face had told her it was not yet time. Now he held it up, in front of a ballroom full of witnesses. "This was recording the night I found Amelia," he said. "I didn't know it was still on. I had been using it to document the city clearing camps under your company's name, Victor. I thought I was recording proof that your contractors were harassing people. Instead, I recorded your driver calling you." Victor's mouth opened, then closed. Amelia heard her own pulse. For weeks after the accident, Caleb had given her pieces, not all of them. He had told her he saw a black car leaving the road. He had told her the police report was wrong. He had told her that someone had staged the crash to look like she had lost control. But he had not told her he had a recording. At first, that would have hurt her. Now she understood. Caleb had spent years surviving by not trusting anyone too quickly. Amelia, of all people, knew what betrayal could teach a person. Victor forced a laugh. A homeless man with a mysterious recording, how convenient. Caleb looked at Amelia. "This is your choice," he said softly, "not mine." The words passed through her like sunlight. Her choice. For years, Victor had made decisions around her, through her, against her. He had chosen the friends she should trust, the doctors she should see, the statements her publicist should release. When the divorce began, he had chosen humiliation as a weapon. When she fought back, he had chosen fear. But now Caleb stood in a room full of powerful people and gave the power back to her. Amelia turned to the sound technician near the stage. Connect it. Victor lunged forward. No. The guards finally grabbed him. He fought them for 1 second before remembering the room, the cameras, the guests. Then he smoothed his jacket as if he had merely stumbled. "This is absurd," he said. "You cannot play some edited street recording at a private wedding." Amelia looked toward the reporters. "Private?" she asked. "You were the one who invited half the press, Victor. You wanted them to watch me disgrace myself by marrying Caleb. Let them watch this instead." A ripple of shock moved through the room. Several reporters lifted their phones. Sound technician took the device from Caleb with trembling fingers. While he connected it, Amelia's eyes drifted to the white roses around the room. She had chosen them because her mother loved white roses. Her mother had died long before Victor entered Amelia's life, but once, when Amelia was 22 and terrified of inheriting a company too large for her hands, her mother had told her, "Never let anyone make you feel cruel for defending yourself. Kindness without courage is just surrender." Amelia had been kind to Victor for too long. The speakers crackled. For a few seconds there was only static, rain, traffic, Caleb's rough breathing. Then a man's voice came through, low and anxious. "It's done. Car went over the barrier. She's not moving." Amelia's fingers curled. Victor's face turned grey. Another voice, distorted but clear enough, answered through a phone speaker. "You checked?" The driver said, "No time. Someone's nearby." "Then leave. The storm will finish it." A sound passed through the guests, part horror, part disbelief. Bianca began to cry silently. The recording continued. Footsteps splashed. A car door slammed. Then Caleb's voice, distant and alarmed, shouted, Hey, can you hear me?" The sound technician stopped the recording without being asked. The silence afterward was heavier than the music had been. Victor laughed again, but it broke halfway. "That proves nothing. Anyone could fake my voice." Amelia turned to Bianca. "Is that why you thought he would be out of the country?" Bianca wiped her cheek with the back of her hand. "He told me he had to leave before the investigation reopened. He said everything was handled. He said Amelia would never remember enough, and if she did, everyone would think she was unstable because—" She stopped. "Because of you?" Amelia asked. Bianca nodded. Victor shook his head violently. "Do not listen to her. She has been trying to extort me for weeks." Bianca's face twisted. "Extort you? You emptied my account. You locked me out of the apartment. You told every agency I was unreliable. I have been sleeping in a staff hostel with 3 other women because you wanted me desperate enough to disappear." The room shifted again, but this time toward Bianca. Amelia saw the moment people stopped looking at her as the betrayed wife and began looking at Bianca as something more complicated than a mistress. That was the thing about public scandals. They turned people into titles: billionaire, ex-husband, mistress, homeless man. No one asked how many lies had to be stacked before someone became a villain in a story told by a richer villain. Amelia had hated Bianca for a long time. She had hated the photographs, the smug interviews, the way Bianca had once rested her jeweled hand on Victor's chest while Amelia stood 10 feet away pretending not to bleed inside. She had hated the perfume she found on Victor's shirts and the laugh she heard in the background of late-night calls. But looking at Bianca now, pale and shaking in a waitress uniform, Amelia felt something colder and wiser than hate. Victor had used both of them. He had simply used them differently. "Why did you point at Caleb?" Amelia asked. Bianca looked at Caleb again, "Because Victor showed me his picture." Caleb's brows drew together. "When?" he asked. "After the accident," Bianca said. "He was furious Amelia survived. He said some man dragged her away from the road before the weather got worse. He had a blurry photo from a traffic camera. He told his driver to find you." Caleb's hand tightened around Amelia's. Bianca's voice dropped. He said no witness was allowed to remain a witness. Victor shouted, "Lies." But his shout landed weakly now. Mr. Langford, the chairman, stepped forward. He was nearly 70, with silver hair and a face that had survived 4 recessions and 3 corporate wars. He had never liked Victor, but he had liked scandal even less. For months, he had begged Amelia to settle quietly, to avoid dragging Stone Global into public conflict. Now his voice was cold. "Victor, sit down." Victor stared at him. "You do not give me orders." "I do tonight," Mr. Langford said, "as chairman of a company whose acting consultant may have attempted to harm its CEO." Victor's arrogance returned in one desperate flash. "Former CEO, Amelia's control is under review." Amelia smiled then. It was small, it was not kind. "No, Victor," she said, "that was what you thought tonight was for." He froze. The ballroom leaned in. Amelia turned toward the stage. Behind the wedding band, a large screen had been set up to show photographs from the ceremony. Earlier, it had played images of Caleb and Amelia standing under white roses, of guests clapping politely, of Victor watching with his champagne glass raised like a man waiting for a funeral. Amelia nodded to her assistant, Nora, who stood near the side doors with a tablet pressed against her chest. Nora's face was pale but determined. She tapped the screen. The wedding photos disappeared. A document appeared instead. At the top were the words, "Emergency Board Resolution." Victor stared. Amelia faced the guests, but her eyes never left him. "When Caleb saved me, everyone told me not to trust him. They said it was convenient that a man with nothing appeared at the exact moment I had almost lost everything. They said maybe he wanted money, maybe he wanted fame, maybe he wanted revenge against Stone Global because of what our contractors had done to his community." Caleb looked down. Amelia continued, "They were wrong about his heart, but they were not wrong about one thing. Caleb did have a reason to hate my company." The room stilled again, but differently this time. Caleb had once told her the story in fragments, never as a performance, never asking for pity. His mother had run a small bakery in the East Ward. When Stone Global partnered with the city on a redevelopment project, families were promised relocation support, fair payments, and new housing. On paper, everything was clean. In reality, subcontractors squeezed people out fast, rents rose before aid arrived, and Caleb's mother lost the bakery she had built before Caleb was born. Caleb had been working as a paramedic then. He took extra shifts. He filed complaints. He went to public meetings where men in suits thanked him for his passion and did nothing. After his mother got sick, he sold what little he had to keep her comfortable. After she died, the last envelope from the city arrived, claimed Enid. That was how a man with training, discipline, and a stubborn sense of justice ended up sleeping behind the train station with a backpack full of documents no one wanted to read. Amelia had read them. Every page. And what she found had almost made her sick. Not because Stone Global had failed. Companies failed people every day through greed dressed as efficiency. What made her sick was Victor's signature. He had overseen the redevelopment while Amelia was recovering from the burnout he kept telling doctors was emotional instability. He had approved contractors she had previously rejected. He had routed payments through shell vendors. He had cut corners, crushed families, then used the profits to strengthen his claim that he, not Amelia, was the steady hand Stone Global needed. Caleb had not known all of that when he saved her. He had just seen a woman in danger and acted. That was why she loved him. Amelia turned back to Victor. "When I returned to the office, you expected me to be weak. You expected me to be embarrassed by Caleb. You expected the board to question my judgment, so I let you." Victor narrowed his eyes. "What have you done?" Nora tapped again. More documents appeared. Bank transfers, contractor agreements, messages between Victor and men whose names made 2 of the board members curse under their breath. Amelia said, "For 2 months, while you laughed at my engagement, while you planted stories about Caleb, while you pressured the board to remove me for mental incompetence, my legal team followed the money." Victor shook his head. Those are confidential company files. No, Amelia said, those are evidence. At the word evidence, Victor's gaze shot toward the exits. The guards noticed. So did the police officers, stepping quietly into the ballroom. The guests began whispering again, louder now. Victor's face changed one last time. Rage stripped away the polish. He looked at Amelia with the same expression she had seen behind closed doors, the one he had hidden from cameras and dinner guests. The expression that said she was an object that had dared move without permission. You ungrateful. Caleb stepped forward, but Amelia touched his arm. She wanted Victor to look at her when he fell. You took my company, Amelia said. You took my name and dragged it through the mud. You took my trust. You tried to take my life, but your mistake was thinking I would become cruel to survive you. She looked at Bianca. Bianca was staring at the floor, tears dripping from her chin. You thought I would hate the woman you used enough to ignore what she knew, Amelia said. You thought I would be too proud to protect her. You thought I would let the world call Caleb a gold digger because admitting I loved him made me look foolish. Her smile faded. You built your plan around the worst version of me. That woman does not exist anymore. One of the officers approached Victor. Victor Stone, she said, we need you to come with us. Victor stepped back. On what charge? The officer's voice remained even. We can discuss that outside. He looked around the ballroom, searching for allies. Men who once shook his hand looked away. Women who once smiled at Bianca stared at him with open disgust. The reporters recorded everything. The board members whispered urgently among themselves. His world was collapsing in real time, and he could not stop people from watching. Then he did something Amelia did not expect. He turned to Bianca. You, he said softly. Bianca flinched. Victor's voice dropped into the tone Amelia remembered too well, the tone that could make a threat sound like concern. Think carefully, you will be alone, no money, no home, no one will believe you after what you did. Tell them you lied because Amelia paid you. Say it now, and I will forgive you. Bianca's entire body shook. For 1 second, Amelia thought fear might win. She knew how fear could live under the skin long after the person who planted it had left the room. She knew how easy it was to mistake silence for safety. Then Bianca lifted her head. No, she said. Victor's eyes narrowed. Bianca's voice grew stronger. No, I am done. He stared at her as if she had spoken a language he did not know. Bianca turned to the officer. I have messages, voice notes, documents he made me sign. I have the name of the doctor he paid to say Amelia was unstable, and I have the real paternity test he hid. Victor went still. Amelia felt Caleb look at her. A paternity test. Bianca placed one hand over her stomach. This baby is not Victor, she said. The ballroom fell so silent Amelia heard a glass roll under a table. Victor looked as if she had struck him. Bianca's voice broke, but she kept going. He knew from the beginning, but he made everyone think the baby was his because it made Amelia look abandoned and humiliated. It made him look like a man starting over. The baby's father was someone who worked for him, someone he sent away after the accident because that man knew too much. A man near the back door lowered his head. Amelia saw him only because Caleb did. Caleb's posture changed. That's the driver. The man bolted. The police moved quickly, guests shouted, chairs scraped. The man made it halfway through the side entrance before 2 officers stopped him. There was a brief struggle, then the doors swung shut behind them. No one breathed. Bianca covered her mouth and sobbed. Victor stared after the driver with a hatred so naked it chilled the room. Amelia understood then. The driver had not only followed orders, he had been Bianca's lover. Perhaps he had promised her escape. Perhaps he had betrayed her too. Perhaps, like everyone caught in Victor's orbit, he had learned too late that loyalty to a cruel man only bought more chains. The officer touched Victor's arm. This time he did not resist. But before they led him away, he looked back at Amelia. "You think this makes him love you," Victor said, nodding at Caleb. "A man like that will always want what you have." Amelia's eyes moved to Caleb. 2 months ago, when she woke in a clinic with a bandage on her forehead and no phone, Caleb was sitting in a plastic chair beside the bed, dripping rainwater onto the floor. A nurse had assumed he was family because no stranger waited that long. When Amelia tried to thank him with money, he had pushed the envelope back across the blanket. "I didn't save your bank account," he had said. Later, when she found him again and offered him a place to stay, he refused the hotel suite and chose the smallest staff room on the property. When she offered him a job, he said he would take one only if it involved fixing the housing damage Stone Global caused. When she asked why he kept helping her, he said, "Because someone should." Love had not arrived like thunder. It had arrived like a cup of coffee left beside her during a long night of reviewing files, like Caleb quietly moving a chair between her and a reporter who asked a cruel question, like the first time Amelia laughed without checking who might use it against her, like the moment she realized she did not feel smaller beside him. She felt more herself. Amelia looked at Victor. "You still do not understand. Caleb never asked for what I have." She took Caleb's hand. "He reminded me what I am." Victor's mouth twisted, but the officer guided him toward the doors. Cameras followed. Guests parted. For years, rooms had opened for Victor because he was charming, wealthy, powerful. Tonight they opened because no one wanted to touch him. As he passed Bianca, he leaned close enough to whisper something Amelia could not hear. Bianca's face went white. Caleb saw it. "What did he say?" Caleb asked. Bianca shook her head. Amelia stepped closer. "Bianca." The woman looked at her, ashamed and terrified. "He said I would never be safe." Amelia's expression did not change, but something inside her settled. Victor had just made his final mistake. She turned to Nora. "Bring the blue folder." Nora hurried to a side table and returned with a folder Amelia had placed there before the ceremony. Victor had thought the wedding was an act of emotional foolishness. In truth, Amelia had known there was a chance the evening would become a battlefield. She had not known Bianca would be here. She had not known the truth would burst open in quite this way. But she had prepared for Victor. Amelia opened the folder and removed 2 documents. "Bianca," she said, "2 weeks ago, my legal team located the apartment Victor took from you. It was purchased through one of his shell companies using money stolen from Stone Global's redevelopment fund. As of this afternoon, that property is frozen, along with others connected to him." Bianca blinked. "I don't understand." "It means he cannot use it to control you anymore." Amelia handed one document to Nora, who gave it to the officer nearest them. "This is a request for immediate protective action for witnesses in an ongoing investigation," Amelia said. "I signed it before the ceremony in case any of Victor's associates tried something tonight." Bianca stared at her. "You signed it for who?" "For anyone brave enough to tell the truth." Bianca began crying again, but this time she did not look weak. She looked like someone who had been holding a door shut with her whole body and finally heard help on the other side. Amelia handed her a folded napkin from the table. Bianca took it with trembling fingers. "I helped him hurt you," Bianca whispered. "Yes," Amelia said. The honesty struck harder than comfort would have. Bianca lowered her eyes. Amelia continued, "You lied about me. You smiled beside him while he humiliated me. You accepted gifts bought with money he stole from people like Caleb's mother. I will not pretend that did not happen." Bianca nodded, tears slipping down her face. "I know. But I will not let him destroy you to make myself feel avenged." Bianca looked up. Amelia's voice softened. "Your testimony will matter. Your choices from this moment will matter. That child deserves a mother who is free before they are born." Bianca pressed the napkin to her mouth. Then slowly, she lowered herself to pick up the broken tray. Amelia stopped her. "Leave it." Bianca froze. Amelia looked at the nearest catering manager, a thin man who seemed ready to vanish into the wallpaper. "She is finished working tonight. Pay her for the full event." The manager nodded quickly. "Of course, Ms. Stone." "Double," Caleb said. Amelia glanced at him. He shrugged. "You said the agency promised double." A small, unexpected laugh moved through the room. It broke the tension just enough for people to remember they were breathing. Amelia smiled at Caleb, and for one brief moment the ballroom disappeared. It was just him, looking at her as if she were not a scandal, not a headline, not a billionaire making dangerous enemies, but the woman he had asked to marry him with a ring he had made from a piece of silver wire before she bought them real bands. Victor was gone now, but his shadow still clung to the room. Amelia turned toward the guests. "I apologize," she said, "for the interruption." A nervous laugh rose, then died when everyone realized she was not joking. "Some of you came to celebrate," Amelia continued. "Some of you came to judge. A few of you came because Victor told you there would be a spectacle." Several guests looked away. "You got one," Amelia said, "but not the one he promised." She walked to the center of the dance floor. The train of her wedding dress slid over the marble, catching tiny reflections from the shattered glass. Caleb followed, close but not crowding her. Bianca stood near the side, wrapped in a shawl one of the older servers had brought her. Amelia looked at the board members first. As of this morning, Stone Global has voted to remove Victor Stone from every advisory, consulting, and proxy role connected to the company. The emergency resolution is signed, witnessed, and filed. Mr. Langford nodded, his face grim. Amelia looked next at the reporters. "Tomorrow, my office will release a full statement, along with the first set of documents concerning the East Ward redevelopment fraud. Stone Global will cooperate with law enforcement. We will compensate every displaced family harmed by illegal contractor practices. We will rebuild the housing we promised, under an independent trust not controlled by my board, my family, or me." Caleb's head turned sharply. He had not known that part. Amelia met his eyes. His lips parted, but no words came. She continued, "The trust will be chaired by 3 people, a retired judge, a housing advocate from the East Ward, and Caleb Reyes." The room erupted again. Caleb stared at her. "Amelia." She stepped close enough that only he could hear her answer. "You once told me justice should not depend on whether the person asking for it owns a suit." His eyes shone. "You remembered that." "I remember everything you say when you think no one important is listening." He let out a breath that sounded almost like a laugh, almost like pain. Amelia turned back to the guests. "Tonight was supposed to be a wedding reception," she said. "I would still like it to be one." No one seemed to know how to respond. Then Caleb squeezed her hand. "May I?" he asked. Amelia nodded. Caleb faced the room. He was not used to ballrooms. Amelia could tell from the way he held his shoulders, ready for insult, ready for doors to close. But when he spoke, his voice was steady. 2 months ago, I thought Amelia Stone was the name on the side of buildings that pushed people like me out into the cold, he said. I was not wrong to be angry, but I was wrong to think a name on a building tells the whole truth about a person. Amelia swallowed. Caleb looked at the guests, then at the servers standing along the walls, then at Bianca. I saved Amelia because she needed help. She helped me because I needed someone to listen. That should not be rare, but it is. The room was still. I do not belong in your world, Caleb said. Victor's words seemed to echo for a moment. Then Caleb smiled faintly, but I am not sure your world belongs as it is. A few guests laughed softly, one person clapped, then another. Soon the applause grew. Not everyone joined. Amelia noticed who did and who did not. she always noticed. But the sound filled the room anyway, not polished, not polite, but real enough to warm the cold places Victor had left behind. The priest, who had performed the ceremony, approached Amelia carefully. "Mrs. Ray's stone," he said, stumbling only slightly over the new name. "Would you like a moment before continuing?" Amelia looked at Caleb. "Do you?" He glanced toward the doors where Victor had been taken, then toward Bianca, who was now speaking quietly with a female officer, then toward the broken glass being swept away by staff. Finally, he looked at Amelia. "I waited years for a day that felt like the world might change," he said. "I can wait 5 minutes for our first dance." Amelia smiled. 5 minutes became 15. Statements were given. Bianca was escorted to a private room with Nora and 2 officers. The driver was taken into custody. Victor's lawyers began calling before the police car left the property, but for once, Victor could not control who answered. The guests buzzed with shock, but Amelia did not chase the whispers. She had chased whispers for years, trying to correct every lie before it hardened into reputation. Tonight she let people talk. The truth had finally grown teeth. In the bridal suite, away from the crowd, Caleb stood by the window overlooking the garden. Amelia closed the door behind them. For a while neither spoke. Outside, the fountain lights shimmered across the water. Beyond the garden wall stood the city Victor had tried to own, the city Caleb had survived, the city Amelia had spent a lifetime building without always seeing who was buried beneath the foundations. "I should have told you about the recording," Caleb said. Amelia leaned against the door. "Yes." He turned. She did not soften the word. He deserved honesty as much as she did. "I was afraid," he said. "Of me." "Of what being near you was doing to me." He looked down. "At first I thought you would take the recording, pay me, and disappear behind lawyers. Then you came back to the train station wearing shoes that cost more than my old apartment and asked the men there what they needed. You listened, not like a politician, like it hurt." Amelia remembered that day clearly. Caleb had tried to keep her away, embarrassed by the place where he slept. She went anyway, not with cameras or charity banners, but with coffee, blankets, doctors, and lawyers. One of the older men had called her princess, with a laugh sharp enough to cut. Amelia had sat beside him on a crate and said, "Probably, but I brought socks." That was the first time Caleb smiled at her. Now he said, "I started wanting you to be different." "And was I?" "Yes," his voice lowered. "That scared me more." Amelia crossed the room. "Why?" "Because if you were different, then I had to stop hatting you." She nodded slowly. Caleb's eyes held hers. "And if I stopped hatting you, I had to admit I loved you before I knew what to do with it." Amelia's throat tightened. He reached for her hand, then paused. He always gave her that pause, that chance to choose. She closed the distance and took his hand herself. "I was afraid too," she said. He gave a faint smile, "of a homeless man." "Of a good man," she said. "I no longer knew what to do with one." His smile faded. Amelia touched his cheek. "Victor made love feel like a contract with invisible clauses. I kept searching your kindness for traps." "I know. That must have hurt." "It did. I am sorry." He turned his face slightly into her palm. "I knew what I was marrying." She raised an eyebrow, a suspicious billionaire. A brave woman who apologizes only after she has checked all the exits. Amelia laughed. For a moment the laughter undid her. The day had been too much. Vows, cameras, Bianca, Victor, the recording, the paternity test, the trust. She pressed her forehead to Caleb's chest, and he wrapped his arms around her carefully, as though her strength made her precious, not untouchable. "I do not want our marriage to begin with secrets," she said. "Neither do I." "Then tell me the thing you still have not told me." Caleb went still. She felt it. There it was, the shadow she had sensed even before Bianca pointed at him. Not guilt, exactly, something heavier, a stone carried too long. He stepped back and reached into his pocket. This time he removed a folded paper, worn soft at the edges. "I was going to give you this after the wedding," he said, "before everything happened." Amelia took it. It was an old eviction notice. Her company's logo sat at the top. Beneath it was the name, Rosa Reyes, Caleb's mother. Amelia read the date. Her stomach dropped. "This was issued while I was CEO." Caleb nodded. "But Victor oversaw East Ward operations then. I had delegated." "I know," Caleb said. Amelia looked up. His face was calm, but his eyes were not. "I know Victor did most of it," he said. "I know your signature was electronic. I know you were being kept away from reports. I know all the things your lawyers know." "But," Amelia whispered. "But my mother wrote to you 8 times. Amelia's chest tightened. "She wrote to your office," Caleb said, "to you personally. She believed if you knew, you would stop it." Amelia stared at the paper. "I never saw any letters." "I believe you." The answer came too quickly, too gently. It hurt more than accusation would have. "I believe Victor's people intercepted them," Caleb said, "but for a long time, I imagined you reading them and throwing them away. I imagined your hands on the papers. I hated those hands." Amelia looked at her fingers, holding the notice. "And then those were the hands I carried you with," he said. The room blurred. Caleb continued, "I fell in love with you while still grieving someone your company failed. That is not simple. I do not want to make it simple just because we are married." Amelia folded the paper carefully. "Thank you for telling me. I was afraid it would ruin today." "No," she said, "it belongs here." He looked surprised. Amelia placed the paper on the vanity beside her bouquet. "Your mother should be at this wedding too." Caleb closed his eyes. When he opened them, Amelia saw the tears he refused to hide. She took his hand and led him back toward the ballroom. The guests quieted when they entered. Perhaps they expected another announcement, another scandal, another piece of wreckage from Victor's life washing onto shore. Instead, Amelia walked to the microphone. "My husband and I will have our first dance now," she said. A ripple of relieved laughter moved through the room. Then Amelia added, "But before that, there is someone I want to honor." Caleb looked at her, startled. Amelia held up the folded paper. Rosa Reyes was a baker, a mother, and one of many people Stone Global failed in the East Ward. "I never met her. I should have. Tonight, the trust we announced will begin with her name." Caleb's breath caught. "The Rosa Reyes Housing Trust," Amelia said, "will open its first office in the East Ward within 30 days. The applause began slowly, then grew stronger. Caleb did not look at the guests. He looked at Amelia as if she had placed something broken back into his hands whole. The orchestra began again. Their first dance was not perfect. Amelia's dress was heavy, Caleb stepped on the hem once, and somewhere near the dessert table, a reporter whispered loudly enough for half the room to hear. But Caleb's hand was warm at her waist, and Amelia found that she did not care whether they looked graceful. "You realize," Caleb murmured, "that Victor will say you named the trust after my mother because I manipulated you." Amelia looked up at him. "Victor can say it from a holding cell." Caleb laughed quietly. There was joy in it, but also disbelief. Amelia understood. Freedom did not arrive all at once. Sometimes it stood at the door waiting for you to recognize it without the chains. As they danced, Amelia saw Bianca standing near the side entrance, wrapped in the shawl, watching them. She looked lost, as if the world had changed too quickly and she did not yet know where to place her feet. Amelia whispered, "I need to speak with her." Caleb followed her gaze. "Now." Before fear speaks louder than truth. The dance ended to applause. Amelia kissed Caleb softly, ignoring the camera flashes, then crossed the room. Bianca straightened when she saw her coming. "I already gave my statement," Bianca said quickly. I told them everything I could remember. I know it doesn't fix. I need to ask you something, Amelia interrupted. Bianca went quiet. When you were with Victor, Amelia said, did you ever love him? The question seemed to stun them both. Bianca's hand tightened around the shawl. I thought I did. Amelia nodded. He told me you were cold, Bianca said. He said you married him for appearances. He said you never wanted a family, never wanted love, never wanted anything but control. I believed him because he looked so lonely when he said it. A sad smile touched Amelia's mouth. He was very good at looking lonely. I liked feeling chosen, Bianca whispered. I was 26 and stupid and tired of being invisible. Victor made me feel like I had won something. Amelia looked across the ballroom at Caleb, speaking with Mr. Langford. And later, Amelia asked. Later I realized I was the prize he held up to punish you, Bianca said. By then, I had burned every bridge trying to prove I belonged beside him. The honesty settled between them. I hated you, Bianca said. I know. I think I hated you because if you were cruel, then what I did was less ugly. Amelia considered that. Then she said, I hated you because it was easier than admitting my husband had never loved me properly. Bianca's face crumpled. I am sorry, she said. This time, Amelia heard it differently. Not as a performance, not as an escape, as a small first payment on a debt too large to settle in one night. I believe you, Amelia said. Bianca closed her eyes briefly. But belief is not the same as trust, Amelia added. I know. You will testify. Yes. You will stay away from the press unless my legal team is with you. Yes. You will accept protection. Bianca hesitated. Amelia's tone sharpened. That was not a suggestion. For the first time that night, Bianca almost smiled. You are very bossy. I am told it is one of my flaws. By men. Usually. Bianca let out a shaky laugh, then touched her stomach. I do not know how to be a mother in the middle of all this. No one knows how to be a mother before becoming one, Amelia said, but you can start by surviving. Bianca looked at her for a long moment. Why are you helping me? Amelia glanced at Caleb. Because someone helped me when I had nothing to offer him, she said. I am trying to learn from that. Near midnight, the wedding finally became something like a celebration. Not the perfect society event Victor had hoped to poison, but something stranger and warmer. The servers ate plates from the buffet after Amelia insisted. Several board members found themselves in conversation with East Ward organizers Caleb had invited quietly, people they had ignored in public hearings. Amelia's aunt danced with one of the police officers after he finished taking statements. Nora cried twice and blamed the champagne both times. Bianca left through a private exit under protection, carrying a bag of food. Caleb packed himself. Before she stepped into the car, she turned back to Amelia. He kept a ledger, she said. Amelia went still. Where? Bianca glanced toward the ballroom. In the place he thought you would never go. Amelia understood before Bianca said it. The old house, Bianca whispered. Your house, the one you left after the divorce. Amelia felt the past open like a dark room. The house on Marrow Lane had been Victor's favorite weapon. He had insisted they buy it after the wedding, a mansion too large for two people, filled with marble and silence. Amelia had tried to make it a home. Victor had made it a stage. Every room held a memory she had sealed away, arguments softened into apologies she did not owe, dinners where Victor corrected her in front of guests, mornings when she woke already tired from defending her own thoughts. After the divorce, she never returned. Victor knew that. Of course, he hid something there. Caleb watched her face. We do not have to go tonight. Amelia looked at the white roses, the empty champagne glasses, the dance floor where people were finally laughing. Then she looked at her husband. Yes, she said, we do. The old house waited behind iron gates and overgrown hedges, beautiful in the cruel way empty mansions can be beautiful. Moonlight silvered the windows. Police followed in 2 cars, along with Nora and Amelia's attorney, Daniel Price, who arrived still wearing a tuxedo and the expression of a man whose evening had gone far beyond his hourly rate. Amelia stood at the front steps for a moment. Caleb held her coat. "This place hurt you," he said. "It tried." He slipped the coat over her shoulders, "Then let us make it useful." Inside, dust lay over everything. Sheets covered the furniture. The air smelled faintly of cedar and old perfume. Amelia walked through the foyer slowly, hearing echoes that no one else could hear. Victor's voice telling her she was too tired to attend the board meeting. Victor's hand at her lower back, getting her away from people he did not want her to speak to. Victor smiling for cameras while whispering, "Do not embarrass me." She paused at the bottom of the staircase. Caleb waited. He did not rush her, he never rushed her through pain. Amelia continued toward Victor's old study. The door was locked. Daniel lifted his brows. "Do you have a key?" Amelia looked at Caleb. Caleb removed a small ring of keys from his pocket. Amelia stared. "Where did you get those?" "Bianca gave them to Nora before she left," he said. "She said one of them opened the study." The third key worked. The study looked untouched. Dark wood shelves, leather chairs, a globe bar Amelia had always hated. Victor had liked to pour drinks while explaining her own company to her. Police searched the desk first. Nothing. Then the shelves. Nothing. Amelia stood in the center of the room, thinking. In the place he thought you would never go. Not the house, that was too easy. Her gaze moved to the portrait above the fireplace. It was of Amelia and Victor from their first year of marriage. She wore emerald silk. Victor stood behind her with his hands on her shoulders. Everyone had said they looked powerful. Amelia had always thought she looked trapped. She walked toward it. "Take that down," she said. Behind the portrait was a wall safe. Daniel swore softly. Nora whispered, "Of course." The police opened it with a warrant and a specialist called from the city. Inside were drives, documents, passports, bundles of cash, and a black ledger bound in leather. Daniel put on gloves before touching it. As he flipped through the pages, his expression changed from satisfaction to shock. "This is not just Stone Global," he said. "There are names here from the city council, private equity firms, judges, contractors." Amelia looked at Caleb. Victor had not been a corrupt man inside a clean system. He had been a door into a rotten house. Caleb's face was grim. How many families? Daniel closed the ledger. A lot. Amelia felt the weight of it settle on her, but it did not crush her. Not this time. She had spent years thinking power meant standing above everyone else, where no one could touch her. Caleb had taught her power could also mean bending down and lifting. By sunrise, Victor's arrest had become national news. By noon, Stone Global's stock wobbled, then steadied after Amelia's full statement aired. She did not hide behind legal language. She named the harm. She named the trust. She named Rosa Reyes. She named Caleb not as her savior, but as the man who refused to let her look away. By evening, the first families from East Ward began calling the hotline Nora had set up. 3 days later, Bianca testified. A week later, the driver made a deal and confirmed Victor had ordered the accident. He also confirmed the baby was his. Bianca did not speak to him when they passed in the courthouse hallway. She kept one hand over her stomach and walked forward. Victor fought, of course. Men like Victor always mistook consequences for temporary inconvenience. He claimed Amelia had conspired against him. He claimed Caleb was a paid actor. He claimed Bianca was unstable. He claimed the recordings were fake, the ledger planted, the money misunderstood. But too many people had heard the truth in that ballroom. Too many cameras had captured his panic. Too many names in the ledger began turning on one another to save themselves. The empire he built out of lies did not fall in a single dramatic crash. It cracked, then cracked again. Then everyone heard the breaking. Months passed. The wedding became legend, but Amelia refused to let it become only gossip. The Rosa Reyes Housing Trust opened in a brick building that had once been an abandoned bank. Caleb chose the location because his mother used to pass it on her way to buy flour. On opening day, people lined up outside before dawn, not because they trusted Stone Global, but because Caleb stood at the door greeting them by name. Amelia watched from across the street for a while before joining him. "You are hiding," he said without turning. "I am observing." "You are hiding in expensive sunglasses." She removed them. "Better." "Much." The trust's first office smelled of fresh paint and coffee. On the wall hung a photograph of Rosa Reyes in front of her bakery, smiling with flour on her apron. Beneath it were the words, "No one is invisible here." Caleb had cried when he saw it installed. He pretended he had dust in his eye. Amelia pretended to believe him. Bianca arrived an hour later wearing a plain blue dress, her pregnancy now impossible to hide. She looked nervous when the crowd noticed her. A few people whispered. Some recognized her from the scandal. Some had reasons not to forgive her. Amelia crossed the room and stood beside her. Not embracing her, not erasing the past. Just standing close enough that no one mistook Bianca for unprotected. Caleb brought her a chair. "Thank you," Bianca said softly. He nodded. "How are you feeling?" "Like everyone is staring." "They are," Caleb said. Bianca looked alarmed. He smiled. "Let them. Shame hates daylight." Amelia glanced at him. "You should put that on a wall." "I charge by the quote now." Bianca laughed. It was the first time Amelia had heard her laugh without performance. Later that day, a woman named Mrs. Alvarez came into the office holding a folder so thick the rubber band around it had nearly snapped. She had lost her apartment during the redevelopment and spent years moving between relatives. Caleb sat with her for 2 hours. Amelia joined for the last 30 minutes, reading documents, while Mrs. Alvarez explained how her grandson changed schools 3 times in 1 year. At the end, Mrs. Alvarez looked at Amelia for a long moment. "I used to curse your name," she said. The room went quiet. Amelia nodded. "You had reason." Mrs. Alvarez studied her, then pushed the folder across the table. "Then, give me a reason not to." Amelia took the folder. "I will." That night, Amelia and Caleb returned to their home, not the mansion on Marrow Lane, which Amelia donated to the Trust for Legal Offices, but a smaller house near the river with creaky floors and a kitchen Caleb actually used. The tabloids called it modest. Amelia called it peaceful. Caleb made tea. Amelia removed her heels by the door and sighed like a woman freed from a legal contract. "You looked happy today," he said. "I was terrified." "I know, you look similar." She threw a cushion at him. He caught it, laughing. Then his expression softened. "You did well." Amelia leaned against the kitchen counter. "I keep thinking about all the letters I never saw." Caleb's smile faded. "I know you believe me," she said, "but belief does not undo what happened." "No," he said, "it gives us a place to start." She looked at him. "Do you ever wish you had married someone simpler?" "Every morning," he said. She narrowed her eyes. He stepped closer, smiling. "Then you wake up and prove complicated is worth it." She tried not to smile back and failed. A month later, Bianca gave birth to a healthy baby girl. She named her Hope. When Amelia received the message, she stared at the screen for a long time. Caleb found her sitting on the edge of the bed. "Is everything okay?" Amelia handed him the phone. He read it and smiled softly. "Hope." She asked if we would visit. "Do you want to?" Amelia looked out the window. Rain tapped gently against the glass, not the violent storm of the night Caleb found her. A softer rain, a forgiving one. "Yes," she said, "I think I do." The hospital room was bright and quiet. Bianca looked exhausted, overwhelmed, and fiercely alive. The baby slept in a blanket, tiny fists curled near her face. Amelia stood awkwardly near the bed, unsure what role she was supposed to play in this strange new arrangement life had made from wreckage. Bianca noticed and smiled faintly. "You look more scared than I am." "I am not often handed Barbies. Do billionaires not come with training? Only in hostile takeovers." Bianca laughed, then carefully placed Hope in Amelia's arms. Amelia froze. Caleb, standing beside her, whispered, "Breathe." "I am breathing. Like a statue." The baby shifted, made a small sound, then settled. Something in Amelia opened, not motherhood exactly, not longing, but wonder. This child had nearly been used as a prop in Victor's final cruelty, yet here she was, warm and real, belonging to no scandal, no headline, no man's revenge. "She is innocent," Amelia said softly. Bianca's eyes filled. "That is why I named her Hope." Amelia looked at Bianca, then "Live like she deserves the name." Bianca nodded. "I am trying." Trying, Amelia had learned, was not a small thing. It was the beginning of every impossible repair. A year after the wedding, the ballroom opened again. This time there were no crystal towers, no reporters waiting for scandal, no Victor in a tailored suit smiling like a blade. The room had been changed. The white roses were gone, replaced by long wooden tables filled with families from the East Ward, former shelter residents, Stone Global employees, lawyers, volunteers, and children running between chairs with frosting on their sleeves. The event was the first anniversary of the Rosa Reyes Housing Trust. In 12 months, the trust had reopened 2 apartment buildings, settled hundreds of claims, exposed a network of corrupt contracts, and forced Stone Global to change its entire development model. Amelia lost some investors. She gained better ones. She lost invitations to certain private clubs. She considered that a blessing. Victor awaited trial, no longer untouchable. His name still appeared in the news, but less often now. That pleased Amelia more than hatred would have. Men like Victor wanted to be feared, but they needed to be remembered. Each day the world turned without him was its own sentence. Bianca arrived with Hope on her hip. She was working now as a coordinator for witness support, helping people navigate court systems that once terrified her. Some people still judged her. She accepted that. She no longer bent her life around being liked. Caleb stood on stage, trying to fix a microphone that did not want to cooperate. Amelia watched him from the side. He still disliked expensive suits, though he wore them better now. He still carried granola bars in his pockets to hand to people who forgot to eat. He still slept lightly during storms, though less so when Amelia's hand found his in the dark. He looked up and caught her watching. "What?" he mouthed. She shook her head. He narrowed his eyes suspiciously, then returned to the microphone. Mrs. Alvarez, now living in one of the restored buildings, sat near the front with her grandson. Mr. Langford had retired from the board and volunteered twice a week, badly. Nora had become the youngest executive director in the trust's history, mostly because she created the position and then dared anyone to find someone more qualified. When the microphone finally worked, Caleb tapped it once. The room quieted. "I was told to keep this short," he said, "by my wife, who owns many things, including a frightening number of lawyers." Laughter filled the room. Amelia folded her arms, smiling. Caleb looked at the crowd. A year ago, many of us were standing in this same ballroom when truth interrupted a wedding. Maury laughter, softer this time. "I used to think truth was enough," he said, "that if people knew what had happened, justice would automatically follow. I was wrong. Truth opens the door. People have to walk through it. People have to build something on the other side." His eyes moved to Amelia. Some people have to be brave enough to admit the house they inherited has cracks in the foundation. Amelia felt the words settle deep. Some people have to testify when they are afraid, Caleb continued, nodding toward Bianca. Some have to bring folders full of old pain and demand a reason to trust again. Mrs. Alvarez lifted her chin proudly. Some have to stop confusing charity with repair, and some have to believe a man with nothing still has something to give. The room went still. Caleb's voice softened. My mother used to say bread rises only when it is given time, warmth, and room. People are not so different. A photograph of Rosa rays glowed on the screen behind him. Amelia blinked back tears. So thank you, Caleb said, for making room. The applause rose like a wave. Amelia joined him on stage. He reached for her hand as naturally as breathing. She looked out over the room, at faces that had once represented separate worlds, wealth and poverty, guilt and forgiveness, power and need. Those worlds had not magically become equal. Amelia was not foolish enough to believe one trust, one marriage, or one public scandal could heal everything. But something had begun. A door had opened. This time she would not let it close. When the applause faded, a little girl's cry broke through the room. Everyone turned. Hope had dropped her stuffed rabbit and was objecting loudly. Bianca flushed, but Amelia laughed. She stepped down from the stage, picked up the rabbit, and handed it back to the baby. Hope grabbed Amelia's finger. The room softened around them. Bianca smiled. She likes you. Amelia looked at the child, then at Caleb, then at the crowded ballroom where her life had once shattered in public and somehow reassembled into something stronger. No, Amelia said softly, she trusts me. Bianca's smile faded into understanding. Amelia touched Hope's tiny hand. I will try to deserve it. That evening, after the guests left and the staff packed away the last plates, Amelia and Caleb stood alone in the ballroom. The floor gleamed, the chandeliers dimmed. Outside, rain began to fall, gentle against the tall windows. Caleb looked at her. Are you thinking about that night? Yes. Which one? Amelia understood the question. The night of the accident. The night of the wedding. The night Victor fell. The night Truth walked in wearing a waitress uniform and carrying a child no one knew how to protect yet. All of them, she said. Caleb took her hand, and I used to think unimaginable things were always disasters. He smiled, now. She looked around the ballroom. A year ago, she had frozen here. Now she stood steady. Now I think sometimes the unimaginable thing is surviving without becoming the person who hurt you. Caleb kissed her hand. Outside, the rain kept falling, washing the city clean one street at a time. And Amelia's stone rays, once betrayed, once broken, once left in the storm, walked out of the ballroom beside the poor homeless man who had saved her, not as a woman rescued from her life, but as a woman who had finally chosen what to do with it.